Hey everyone, welcome to the Backstage Kingdom. I'm Michael St. Gregory. What you're about to hear is a very cool interview that I got to do with Taylor Jeffs, the President and Chief Creative Officer of Legacy Entertainment. Now, if you've never heard of that company before, you're about to get a lot of information about one of the most influential theme park design firms in the entire world. We go in depth about ingenuity, innovation, access, creative design, all of the things that this company has done, the history, its development, its current plans, its future plans, and why it is so important for companies like this to give the access that it does, and so much more. So, take a listen. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, so Taylor, thank you so much for taking the time to record with me. If you could let everyone here know what your role is with Legacy Entertainment and what Legacy Entertainment is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So again, my name is Taylor Jeffs. I'm the President and Chief Creative Officer of Legacy Entertainment. And just to pull back, super macro level, again, everyone listening, I'm sure, of course, knows, that Disney has Walt Disney Imagineering, Universal has Universal Creative. And that's something that kind of everyone, all the major theme parks in the world, they want that Disney Universal level of quality. But just because of economics, it doesn't usually make sense to have that in-house. So they need companies like us to come in and deliver that for them. So someone might hire Legacy to create a full theme park from scratch or a ride or come in and renovate an existing park. People hire us to design water parks, aquariums, safari parks and zoos, museums, anything under the experiential entertainment brand. So it's never boring. It's always exciting and always surprising.
The reason that I actually was able to discover Legacy Entertainment to begin with was the fact that your Facebook page uh, unapologetically releases all of this concept art and design information and behind the scenes videos and photos of the development of these very innovative projects and
Yeah.
collaborations and the timelines of projects as they get built even into their completion. This is kind of an unprecedented all access. Why do you believe that that is like a net positive for your company and has allowed you to gain a reputation that it has?
Well, I'm really glad you like that. It's important. I grew up as a fan of the industry, was an ACE member and all those things. And, grew up completely obsessed with theme parks and, not just Disney and Universal, but whatever my local park was Knott's Berry Farm, whatever Knott's Berry Farm was doing, but what was happening around the country. And this was the early days of the internet. So, it was a slow drip of information. But, I think myself and the fan community back then in the early, you know, fandom online would devour any new piece of, concept art or information that came out. And usually you got a single piece of artwork for whatever the cool new attraction was that was coming to, back then it was Paramount Parks or whatever Hershey Parks were doing. And so I've always, loved and valued concept art. And then when I started working with my mentor, Gary Goddard, back in the early 2000s, I discovered this unbelievable archive that his former company, Landmark Entertainment Group, had amassed over their decades of existence. And going through it, it was just a treasure trove of unbelievable uh, designs and artwork and all these things that no one had ever seen. And I couldn't get enough of it and thought, I want to share this with everybody. So we started, just doing a daily post of artwork from the archives, and it grew and grew and grew, and we still do it to this day. And now it's become, you know, really about showcasing and celebrating our team more than anything else. Legacy is made up of top talent formerly of Disney and Universal Studios. So people that have concluded their careers there but have moved on, uh, or work with us and have for decades. So, what are those people doing now? The people that defined the Disney and Universal parks that you and I grew up at, they're now working with Legacy and creating the next generation of attractions around the world and creating unbelievable designs and artwork that need to be appreciated. I mean, our archives have tens and tens of thousands of pieces of artwork in them. So again, every day we try to put something out and just hope that people like you and I get some value out of that. So again, it's really nice to hear that you enjoy it as much as I do.
Let me tell you, I have literally poured from the very first photo that was posted to the most recent one, uh, because I mean, my hyperfixation holds no bounds when it comes to these sorts of things.
Yeah. And it's also super fun that people just entering the industry or interested in the industry can do that. They can go back and hopefully get an inside look at how these projects are created. And especially now, when we can get into this later with the advent of AI and how everything is changing. What is the value of handmade artwork? And
Absolutely.
so that's super interesting. And then our post today, for example, was how a very simple sketch on just a simple pencil sketch became a giant monumental theme park design a few years later. So you know, showcasing that value and the talents of these incredible designers and artists is something that I'm really passionate about.
Right. I'm looking at it now. The World of Water.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes.
that First of all, it's beautiful. I mean, it's very, very easy to be able to make something, such a brilliant way to take an easy symmetrical, that was the word I was looking for, a symmetrical idea, because with water, the W's already look like tridents, and then you have a portal in
Yeah.
the O, and then to be able to, take that nautical flourishment, but then see the evolution of it in how it, ends up becoming a full concept,
Right.
and then
Right.
being taken to IAPA. It's very cool to see that kind of thing.
And that's a funny one in particular, because we were proposing that the name of the park would be World. They gave us a, not a really exciting name to work with when we started the project. It was Polar Ocean World, and the acronym for that was going to be POW, which is also not a great acronym. So we were suggesting, what if it's, instead of Polar Ocean World, it's World of Water or something like that. And we created the giant wow to showcase, if we go with this name, that could work really well in this cool design for the entrance statement. They didn't end up adopting the name of the park, but everyone liked the wow so much that it ended up in the final design. So it, like a lot of things, in Asian theme parks, it may seem a little arbitrary, but spectacle is the name of the game over there. So it's
It
stuck.
absolutely is. It's
Yeah.
probably the number one trend that I have seen in the appeal of the overseas parks. I mean, you look at why everyone considers Tokyo Disney Sea as probably the best Disney theme park, due to its just scale and its immersive theming, and the design elements and the uniqueness of it all, and also for the lack of, not lack of, but um the lesser dependency on IP,
Uh-huh.
uh, in that regard. And original storytelling in theme parks is a rarity nowadays.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, and people do, crave it. And granted, there is, from a business standpoint, there is like a logical means for, like, why to use our IP, when to use it, and there can be a balance, and I can understand it in that regard, but also there's the hindrance in an art perspective
Mhm.
of not being able to allow uh one of the things I've always joked about is that uh, one day Tony Baxter will be able to make his entire Crystal Park, because every design I've ever seen of that man has
Yeah,
just been some sort of attraction encased in a crystal design.
very funny.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
and uh, the amount of pitches. I think there was an article. I'm not sure which publication. I think may have been New York Times, but there was an interview with an Imagineer that said that during their time with Iger, and this was about talking about the transition with Josh D'Amaro now becoming CEO, how the mandate was to push for IP and attractions only, and the original ideas, quote unquote,
mhm,
where when that's looking upon the idea of like something like Haunted Mansion or Pirates of the Caribbean or anything like that, um, were looked not so much, they were pushed aside.
mhm.
And that can be disheartening for
Of
an
course.
artist,
Yeah,
especially when, I look up to people like Joe Rohde and Tony Baxter, who have like these, where do they come up with these ideas type of mindsets. uh, Immersive entertainment and live performances have always been my uh, my passion and I have loved, because I have a theater background, so that's always been the thing that I get drawn to the most. When I have seen attractions that are able to combine those elements, uh, when you see, especially now with attractions that have live actors in them.
yeah,
I was on a podcast recently. A shout out to the Reedy Geeks podcast. We had been talking about the lost art of the attraction pre-show
yeah,
with the host
uh-huh,
beforehand.
yeah,
And one of the classics was Earthquake at Universal,
sure, yeah,
and how that entire like special effects demonstration would go into play, and
mhm,
then you would get the audience interaction.
yeah,
And then they even had it with Ghostbusters when that became a whole thing, and all of that like feeling of being part of it. I feel like Universal had, in its heyday in the 90s,
uh-huh.
some of the best examples of that sort of thing. What do you think with Legacy, um, which is a perfect name for trying to like continue that mindset? Like, are you trying to evoke that feeling and that kind of call back to that peak of feeling like you are in the world?
Uh-huh. Gosh, there's a lot to unpack there because,
Yeah.
to go back a little bit, um, the the battle between, the art of it and the science of it and the commercial aspect of it, is ongoing and will be ongoing forever. Like you, I wish, um, that we could see more original attractions, but original attractions, of course, are, a much larger gamble. So it really takes, a visionary to want to do that. I mean, we have Night Flight under construction right now at, Dollywood that is,
Yes.
original, so that's wonderful to see that these things are still happening on a large scale. Our company, one example from our past and our deep past is, Monster Mansion at Six Flags Over Georgia.
Oh my God, an icon.
Of course, a multi-generational classic at this point. It is purely original, and I think that's probably the most special dark ride in the Six Flags portfolio, unless I'm forgetting something. Um,
I would say it absolutely is. In if there are roller coasters, that have been in many different Six Flags, but there's only one of that one.
yeah,
And any Six Flags enthusiast, or at least it's like it's a cult classic for anyone who has grown up with that park
yeah.
too.
And the park has done such a good job of maintaining it and enhancing it, which is so cool because it didn't get love for a long time. And I think we came in and, the ride opened back in the early '80s before I was born, and then, in 2009, actually a little before that, the park was planning to get rid of it and replacing it with a, Justice League dark ride, which would have been horrible. I mean, Justice League can be a great dark ride, but not with boats and, slow moving boats in that building.
No,
Yeah.
no. There's only the two that I know of are the the shooter one, and then just the plain 3D ride.
Yeah. So we luckily we made a pitch to don't get rid of this, but instead enhance it. And Mark Shapiro, who was running Six Flags at the time, completely got that. Thank God. And that the refurbished version, the reimagined version, opened in 2009, and since then it's been in the park's hands. And again, they've done just a phenomenal. I mean, you never would have thought Six Flags could upkeep a dark ride to that degree, and they've made it better. They've not only kept it up, but they made it better, which is so cool. But then to get around to what you mentioned, you talked about our integration of live actors in a dark ride, and we weren't the first to do it, but it's we were approached by again, you mentioned that we're big in Asia. That's kind of our market. We were approached by this is Indonesia's largest theme park chain called Trans Studio. We were approached by them to create 2 dark rides. Originally, getting back to the discussion about IP versus non-IP, originally both of them were going to be IP based. One that is open is Pacific Rim, and that's near Jakarta, Indonesia, in a park called Trans Studio Cibubur. And that's really interesting. If you haven't seen it, I recommend going on YouTube and checking out a video.
I have, in fact, watched the full ride POV.
Very crazy.
It is so much fun, and I recommend everybody watch it. We'll definitely link it in this video.
For anyone who hasn't seen it, the whole. I mean, we're working with minuscule budgets compared to what Disney and Universal have to create these things. But it's just to touch.
You wouldn't know, though.
Well, I'm glad you say that. That we had, I think, less than 20% of our benchmark was Transformers. The chairman of Trans Studio said at the outset, he said, my audience, the best dark ride they could have seen is Transformers at Universal Singapore, about an hour and a half flight away. So that's our benchmark. But you have less than 20% of the budget to create this Pacific Rim ride. But by having some of our team members, first of all, by having a good design and a good concept, but then by having our team members on site, working with the local artisans, working with the local technicians, we were able to achieve, something pretty close to a universal level. And even, I think it was Blue Loop had a list of the top 10 dark rides of the last decade, and Pacific Rim ranked above Transformers, which was our benchmark. So that was pretty cool, that you can get that universal Disney quality if you're clever about it. But then on the flip side, over at another park in Bali, Trans Studio Bali, I think it's okay to say this, our original IP we were going after was Mad Max, which
Yes.
would make a fantastic dark ride. And at the time, we're talking, just before COVID, the property was tied up in some litigation, so that wasn't possible. So the client asked us to create an original IP, which ended up becoming this dark ride called Road Rage, which takes place in a universe that maybe is similar to Mad Max, but different enough that it's something original, with original characters, original music, original scenography. But that was a fun, creative challenge. So, whenever we're approached with a new project, I always say, if someone wants something that's been done before, go to someone else, go to someone cheaper, because
Right.
like I have hardcore ADD. Like if we're just repeating ourselves, it's not going to hold. These projects, these are multi-year projects, and if we're just doing something basic, it's not going to hold my attention. It has to be something crazy and risky to hold my attention and make sure, like, okay, well, we really got to get this right, because if not, we could really mess up big time. So there have to be a couple things in any project we do that are a creative challenge, that are daring. And at the beginning of this one, what can we do that's different? And we're talking about animatronics and doing animatronics in this Road Rage ride. And we're thinking labor in Bali is so inexpensive, which is sad. It's its own thing. There's a whole separate discussion about that. But said it would be much cheaper to have real people in our dark ride than animatronics. And then you get into
But not only that, it is more exciting.
Of course, yeah. Well, and
it's unexpected.
Right. And it could set us apart. So, okay, well, there's a creative challenge. How do you work? And again, as I said, we have to talk about, Great Movie Ride did this 30 years basically before.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
I did an entire episode about it on my podcast, and
yeah,
it was
Yeah.
it was an incredible experience as a former cast member on that attraction.
Yes.
And it's one of those, you know, there will never be another ride like that in that
No.
park. And so many people will try to emulate it. It's one of those things where it's just like, it was there. Let's appreciate the time that it was there, and you can try to copy it, but you won't be able to recreate that magic.
And the ambition of it. Think about that.
Yeah.
Of all of these properties from different studios, and it's just things that probably wouldn't be possible nowadays unless you
Oh,
have.
absolutely not. With
Yeah.
every merger that is happening right now, there is no way.
And the scale. I mean, it's funny. We're spoiled now by the scale and ambition of attractions that are getting built now, but back then, that didn't happen. That wasn't something that. I
No,
mean,
no one saw that many animatronics in one space, let alone the use of them or the scale of the entire staging and the combination of live actors.
yeah.
It's still mind blowing that it was even able to be pulled off.
It absolutely, it's unbelievable. It's one of those attractions, again, not to get off track, but the deeper you get into it and the history of it and the complication of creating it, and I'm sure you've heard about the performer originally getting shot with the blood stain on their shirt and
Oh,
all this.
yes. I went into that. Yeah.
It's as good as it gets. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, so, but so of course, this is so important for anyone in this industry or probably any industry, is that whenever you put a new idea out there, you're going to hit opposition, and that's healthy to a degree. There should be lots of the checkpoints need to happen to make sure you're not doing something stupid. Um, like, how can we make this work? How can we make live performers in a dark ride work with giant moving, vehicles that could easily kill a person, feet away, and just operational challenges of getting in and out of the spaces, and breaks, and what if there's no performer there, because you can't guarantee I mean, we're not Disney Universal, we're working in developing nations, so you can't guarantee that it's going to be operated well consistently, all these things that you have to kind of work through. But my benchmark was, if Universal can have a year-round haunted house with people doing jump scares, with say 5 to 10 to 15 performers doing jump scares nonstop all day long, and it really doesn't matter if one of them is missing from their spot. Why can't we do that with a dark ride? And there's all sorts of safety mechanisms and mesh nets and all these things that we can do to make sure that works. So then it just becomes the operational issue on the client side, which becomes out of our hands at a certain point. But we did it, and it turned out really well, and it was innovative and cool. But then the other thing you mentioned is the pre-shows, and pre-shows are a very tricky thing, right? Because if it's done well, it can be fantastic, but it's very rarely done well. And honestly, I really don't like pre-shows unless they're done exceptionally well, which Disney and Universal, they're usually done pretty well. But then if you get to the kind of secondary and tertiary parks out there, where people come in a room and watch something on a little TV monitor, I can't stand that. Really, really, really hate that. So that's
Right.
a genre that we've always kind of tried to subvert. In the Pacific Rim ride, again, go check out a video if you haven't seen it, that we put you in lines in front of a door, and this is a little bit ripped off from Star Trek: The Experience.
Oh
where-
my goodness, I am so glad you referenced that.
Oh, good,
It
yeah.
is. I
But,
could talk
there's-
forever about that.
okay, but what an impression that made the first time I saw that as a kid, getting lined up in front of those doors, thinking you're going to get on one of those awful little blue 90s simulators, and then all of a sudden that greatest moment of all time happens. On Pacific Rim, we tried to do kind of the same thing. We don't have budgets like we have in that they had in Star Trek, or like Disney or Universal have, so we had to be clever in a different way. So we lined people up in front of the doors, had the little pre-show playing, and then all of a sudden, red lights, red alert, we have to get you out of here. An employee bursts in through an emergency exit, says, "Follow me. We're going to take you out and evacuate you this way." So that subverted that kind of trope in a way that was hopefully surprising. And then in Pacific Rim, again, I'm sorry, in Road Rage, same thing. How can we take the trope of a dark ride pre-show and do something different and original with it? On that one, we put you in an escape room. And you have to solve. It's literally a jail cell. You get locked in a jail cell, and the whole ride is about breaking out. So to break out of the jail cell, you have to solve one puzzle as a team that can be solved by one person in case in case that ever happens. Um, and there's again a whole operational challenge to overcome there, and that we couldn't have a host go into the jail cell in between each group and reset it. So it had to be something that self resets. So we looked to the benchmark, if it's on your radar, was this super cool place. The one we went to was in New York called Five Wits, that has these kind of these immersive theater attractions that are like part immersive theater, part escape room, but each room you go to has to self reset. So if you move something from one side of the room to the other, the next group coming in will have to move it from the side you put it on, back to the side it came from. So that's something we try to do, is just create things that people haven't seen before, surprise the audience, and hopefully push the medium forward a little bit, because if we're repeating ourselves, there's not much of a point of doing that.
Now, well, it's certainly not something that's done nowadays, and I think the last time I can remember someone doing anything remotely like that was in England with the Alien experience. There was an attraction that was very much a walkthrough where I believe it was in Piccadilly Circus, and it was a walkthrough experience where you were kind of in the same kind of timeline and area that takes place in the Aliens movie, the James Cameron sequel,
Yeah.
and they run you through it, and you're running through the halls, and they're shooting at the aliens, and you see the puppet aliens, and the guns are activated through these really unique like light activated sound effects, and it was very intense and very immersive, and uh, you then cut to like 2 decades later, and you see a lot of these things with like Sleep No More,
Yeah.
and now even on Broadway with Masquerade, the Phantom of the Opera experience,
Yeah.
which I'm very grateful to know a few of the people that are in that and have asked them what's that's like, and they said it's like nothing they've ever been involved with before, which it's very cool to see people catching up with the the way that this kind of entertainment can be experienced,
Yeah.
because I think that, and one of the things that I love that your company does is that you look ahead and you try to see, well, how can we do that now with what we have available to us?
Yeah.
And how can we kind of be the ones to set the bar?
Uh-huh. Well, that's something that's obviously super important to us. But this is something really important. I talk to people who are entering the industry about the worst theme park designers are those who only focus on theme parks. Um,
Right.
again, if we're repeating ourselves, it becomes a little incestuous. If you're only referencing what exists already in theme parks, how can you create something wholly new or greatly new? So it's unbelievably important to have your finger on the pulse of what's happening in every medium as much as possible. In particular, in theater, in immersive theater, in film, um, no, in the art world, to know what's going on out there, because that does more than ever before inform what we're doing in our medium. Um, so I love that you reference Masquerade and Sleep No More and all these things, because those were critical in creating the generation, not Masquerade so much, but Sleep No More, for example, was critical in creating Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, or informed
Yes.
Ghost Town Alive at Knott's Berry Farm, which is my favorite theme park
Oh,
ever.
absolutely. I think they are probably the best at doing that.
Yeah, oh, it's off the charts how great it is, and the fact that it's still going after all these years is just a testament to. I mean, that they're so creative and so clever with no budget basically, and it's just the best thing out there. So
And it just exists. People
yeah,
just there's not really much of like timed, showtime sort of thing. You just live in it. You just experience it as it's happening.
yeah, and we're all looking forward to what the next thing in theme parks is going to be, and maybe it's less clear than it was, and it's such an interesting moment too, because um, I don't. It's kind of a gray area, and anyone who says that they know exactly what it is doesn't. But in
Right.
the last decade, we've seen um, the extreme ends of the spectrum get attempted and kind of fizzle out. We saw a park that was all immersive, no attractions, but all immersive theater with Everland come and go.
Yes.
And then on the flip side, we've seen dozens of these VR parks come and go. And the truth lies somewhere in the middle. People don't want something that is completely Renaissance fair, all day, immersive. And people don't want something that is all digital, high tech, goggles on your head. So where's the medium? Again, you're a father, I'm a father. I think the most valuable thing still is experiencing theme parks and entertainment, any form of entertainment, with your loved ones and seeing it through their eyes. Because if we go see it ourselves, we look at it through a professional lens, almost an academic lens. But if I'm there with my daughters who are 8 years old and 4 years old, I'm experiencing it in a completely different way. And that really changes your priorities. I mean, I worked at Disneyland for almost 5 years in my 20s, and I thought the parks were one thing. And then when I started going with my daughters, I realized the parks were something completely different. And
Yeah. It changes your perspective completely when you go as a parent.
big time, yeah. So that's been the most valuable, whatever practice I've had and things I've learned over my 20 something years in the industry, the last 8 years of going to the parks with my kids has trumped all of that.
Yes, and I think that, what we saw most recently with the opening of Epic Universe,
Yeah,
with I think that, I've said to people that the Isle of Burke area that they have there is what I felt Galaxy's Edge should have been in terms of scope and level
yeah,
and kinetic energy and liveliness. And that's the kind of thing that um, I feel that when people like talk about immersion and
yeah,
people talk about feeling like they're in the world, that is what they don't realize that they mean. Uh, where it's life is like surrounding you. Because
yeah,
we saw a lot of the concept art when it got announced at D23 about Galaxy's Edge, that there was going to be all these aliens walking around and droids, and that there was, seeing a lot of things all the time just surrounding you in these moments. And granted, maybe a percentage of that came to be, but then, of course, that again, you run into budgetary things, and
yeah,
then what actually happens, and people tend to think that the blue sky ideas are what's going to be one to one
yeah.
when they show up. Um, and I wonder, like, where do you like to find a balance in meeting expectations versus developing the ideas?
Gosh, that's again a lot to unpack and great, great topic to dive into. Um, it's really interesting. I think it was the Orange County Register, maybe, going back to Ghost Town Alive, basically saying that Knott's Berry Farm is delivering on what Disney promised to deliver with Galaxy's Edge. That I'm not sure that that's ever truly been fulfilled. Obviously, the attractions are fantastic. Rise of the Resistance is the greatest ride ever created in our medium, but I'm not sure the land ever connected with visitors in the way it was meant to. And I think the live entertainment was greatly scaled back from what was developed and promised. I'm curious if we'll see a little bit of a course correction, with the timeline adjustments coming to Disneyland, hopefully. But to that point, what's so unique about our industry, and I think one of the reasons it's been so successful over the last in particular 70 years since Disneyland opened, and is more successful now than ever, is that we are the only entertainment medium that engages all five senses and allows you to step into these story worlds. The only place where you can truly feel like you are part of, Harry Potter or Star Wars or Avatar to a degree, and all these things. Um, that's so special about our industry. Um, and again, that's something that you can't ever recreate. I think there's finally a lot of pushback against these screen-based attractions that's been happening for a few years now. Um, I've been saying that for almost 20 years because it's like, if I want to see a movie, I'm going to go to the movie theater. What I want to see is something that I can't see at a movie theater or at home. What is so special that it's worth
Right.
traveling to a different state or a different country for? And you know, we're really fulfilling that now. Obviously, Disney and Universal have the budgets to do that in a way that few of the rest of us do. Um, but we do aspire to, and you know, we're working with a lot of the world's top developers outside of Disney and Universal, and we're achieving that goal in a different way. Again, we can't quite do it in the same way just because we don't have those budgets or resources. Um, but in Asia, we're working with groups. You know, we've worked with Chimlong, who's one of China's top theme park developers. We're working with a ton with Vinpearl, who's Vietnam's
The
top theme.
Chimlong facility is incredible.
It's craziness. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen a building that unique.
When we do introductions to potential new clients, I have to point out that I have to say that this is not a rendering because and if anyone hasn't seen it, this is the Chimlong spaceship we're talking about in Zhuhai. But yeah, there's only a couple places, literally a couple, like probably two places in the world where you could do a project at that scale. One is China, and one right now, arguably, is Saudi Arabia. But these are, you know, developing markets where labor's cheaper, materials maybe are cheaper, where ambition for spectacle is greater. Um, but yeah, it's a singular experience that is not only the world's largest indoor theme park, but it's also the world's largest aquarium. It has the world's largest simulator in it. It has 304 seats. No, it's a thing unto itself.
In regards to all of the projects that you've seen conceptually and then, um, come to fruition,
Yeah.
are there any that you have kind of truly wished had made it to its final, final conception and actually come to, uh, like, been made real? Or is there one that you're just, if any, one that you're just really
Yep.
amazed that it even finally came to be? And it could be either or both.
Sure. The obvious answer for me is our water park with Cirque du Soleil. If you've ever seen that, and we post images of it every once in a while. But again, I've been in the industry for 23, designing parks for 23 or 24 years now. The Cirque du Soleil water park is far and above the best thing I've ever worked on. It was under construction in Mexico before the client decided to go in a different direction and then that's a whole separate, we could have a series of podcasts on that topic. But so the very quick version of it, because this is super interesting. Cirque was partnering with, actually they still are partnering with a developer in Mexico called Vedanta, who is a really fantastic timeshare company that has properties all across Mexico. And this is over a decade ago. Vedanta has, you know, tons and tons of competition, and this was in Cancun specifically. And they were looking at how can we stand out from the pack of all these different timeshare developers. And their ideas was let's partner with Cirque du Soleil and create something, you know, that nobody else has. The first thing they did together was an excellent dinner show called Hoya, which is still playing in Riviera Maya near Cancun. It was a whole new model for Cirque, you know, much smaller than the shows you might see in Las Vegas or in a tent touring. I think it's only 600 seats, 20 something people in the cast. So totally different business model, but great show, hugely successful. Cirque and Vedanta are looking to expand their relationship. So, you know, they say, what if we do a theme park or something like that, a water park, something in that spectrum? And Cirque doesn't have that skill set in-house. They are the world's greatest live entertainment company, but they've never done a theme park before. So Guy Laliberté the founder of Cirque, comes to us. He says, we Cirque are the best at live entertainment. You guys are the best at theme parks, water parks, all that. what if we combine our talents to create something new? So we set on a path to create something that just simply doesn't exist. What if we take, and we came to, with the feasibility team, pretty quickly came to the conclusion that a water park was the right idea for these resorts in Mexico. So, okay, so Cirque Legacy, you guys are tasked with creating a water park with the Cirque brand on it. What is that? And we actually spent 2 years figuring that out, which is, we never have that much time for any project. Often we're designing parks, just the economic reality of it. We're designing parks in, 4 months if we're lucky, which is not great, but it is what it is. But we had 2 years to figure this out. And we created something completely new. And it was what we were talking about earlier, taking the principles of all these things that exist in the world of immersive theater trends, of the art world, of theme parks and water parks, of Cirque du Soleil and what they do best. And how do we combine it all um, in a new way that is, commercially viable, that is artistically shocking, that is something that could last 50 years or more. And the result, the big picture of it is that most water parks, actually all water parks basically, and I know there's some nighttime events now at a couple of them in Orlando, but water parks operate from say 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and have a daytime turn, and that's it, right? So we created a water park that had that daytime turn, that you come and just experience the greatest water park you've ever seen in your entire life. That's awesome. But then at nighttime, the water park shuts down, say at 5 o'clock, and then reopens in the evening as a separate ticketed event like Halloween Horror Nights or Halloween Haunt. But this time at night, nobody's getting in the water. You are wandering around the park, and it's like a giant party, and you go from place to place, and you watch mini Cirque du Soleil shows on things that by day they were attractions. At night, they are stages for performances. So the thing that you were playing on in the daytime, the cliff that you were jumping off of, the trapeze that you were holding on to, that is now a stage for a Cirque du Soleil performance. I mean, I remember growing up and how magical it was that, and you just talked about Fantasmic in one of your most recent episodes, that stage, that island, Tom Sawyer Island, I was just there, and now that's the stage for this unbelievable show. How incredible that transformation was. So I think we had 4 main attractions that would turn into mini stages for Cirque du Soleil performances, and then there was a culminating show that had all the performers from the different shows coming into one main show. And this was the coolest project you've ever seen. We did some focus group testing of it. It is the highest tested product in the history of Cirque du Soleil, more than O in Las Vegas, more
Wow.
than Ca, more than anything. The trial intent was off the charts. The way that this would bring people to the market was off the charts. So that was a long way of answering your question, but yes, that is the project. There are many things in our archives that I wish had gotten built. Very few things make it through to opening day, but that is the one where every detail was worked out. Every aspect of the business model was incredible. It made more money at night than in daytime. It was unbelievable. So I'm holding out hope that we will find the right market and partner to do that someday.
That is incredible. And, you know, Cirque du Soleil, obviously one of the continuingly, that's not a word, but one of the one of the most unique and uh, incredibly able to maintain its own creative evolution in regards to the way that it still makes unique shows
Yeah.
and its powerful ability to stay relevant and find innovative ways to perform
Yeah.
with the gymnastics and the storytelling. And obviously storytelling is the biggest element that it all comes down to with Cirque. And I know that storytelling with Legacy is, the foundation as well. So obviously it was a very uh, easy marriage for the two of you to be able to put that together.
Yeah, it was, and that they have a very interesting and challenging business. They have a new leadership team, the third new leadership team in a very short period of time. So it's going to be really fascinating, just as audience behavior is changing. Live entertainment is more important than ever before, but also the core customer is aging out a little bit. So it's going to be so fascinating to watch the evolution of Cirque du Soleil in particular, and how they evolve and what they see their next step as being. Um, Story is something that's really interesting and also oddly challenging for us around the world, and that Disney has done such a good job of hammering home the importance of story in theme parks, um, that it gets misinterpreted a little bit around the world with developers. That you know, to Disney, story is kind of a guidelines, it's guardrails. It's a backstory that informs the world that you're building, and it informs the details and the choices you make. Whereas many developers around the world hear story and they take it to literally mean, what is the story of the theme park? What is the beginning, middle, and end of this theme park? So that is something that we really, um, I don't want to say struggle with, but is a huge challenge and almost sometimes an obstacle to overcome in developing theme parks, particularly in Asia, where clients believe that a theme park has to have a literal story. Um, Explaining that away is not always successful. So there are times where we have to come in and try to shoehorn in a story for the theme park. So that's something that can be again a little bit challenging to work around.
That is always, I believe, the challenge with, you know, theme in the themed park of it all. Because you have something where you can take a concept,
Mhm.
like just any IP or any sort of, um, all around idea. And it's, I think what people don't realize is that theme and storytelling is more in this, it more kind of aligns with identity. Like, what is the identity of the park that you're trying to create? One of the things that I realized that Six Flags has had a struggle with for a long time lately has been identity. You know, are
Mhm.
you, is Six Flags catering to be a thrill park? Is Six Flags the family park? Is,
Yeah.
what is that identity that you really can have people go, oh, when I go to Six Flags, I know I'm going to get
Yeah.
blank.
Yeah.
And where do you think that, like, in terms of when someone can think of, a concept, is identity more important, or is it just something that should be considered?
Yeah, knowing the audience is first, and that absolutely by far and above the most important thing. Six Flags is very challenging because, again, same thing. One of these companies where we had a huge degree of turnover in the management, and each new leader sets a new kind of distinct vision without a unified voice for what it is, and the business challenges can often overshadow uh, that vision. And often, I think for many of us onlookers from the outside, the vision doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think Six Flags stands a better chance now than it has in a long time with the newest leadership. And we're recording this in March 2026. So I don't know how this content's
Right.
going to age.
It
But
tends to have come and go
yeah,
within
yeah,
the last several years.
yeah. But at least the new leader is someone with, a great deal of industry experience and industry respect. It's not someone coming in from a different industry and trying to apply maybe some principles that don't necessarily apply to our industry or Six Flags. Um, and it's a tricky thing too. I mean, Six Flags is the greatest puzzle out there because how relevant is a roller coaster park nowadays? It
Right.
doesn't have the novelty that it did back in the, from its inception and what it was in the 80s and 90s, kind of at its peak. Um, again, we haven't worked with Six Flags in a long time. We did do a lot of work with Six Flags. I mentioned Mark Shapiro earlier. He was the Six Flags CEO, gosh, circa 2005 until 2011. But he was an ESPN guy, but at his core, he was a Disney guy because Disney was part of ESPN. or I'm sorry, ESPN was part of Disney, and he understood the value of getting the whole family versus one member of the family or two members of the family. So it's I'm not sure he was given a fair shake, but it was really interesting to work with him because in that period it really was shifting more towards being a family product. And there's so many factors that come into play. Like, these leaders, they don't have a lot of capital to work with. You have to be very, very strategic in where they place the money. It's again not like the 90s or even early 2000s where you could see 10 Six Flags parks get $20 million roller coasters in one year. That doesn't pan out anymore, let alone something that could be riskier like a dark ride or a parade. We had a lot of success with Six Flags with the glow in the park parades. I'm not sure if that's on anyone's radar anymore. But again, Mark Shapiro, how do we one move towards getting the whole family here? So he did a lot of cool things. He did the Wiggles World license deal for the kiddie zones, and we did a night parade. It started off as one, then it became two, then it became three, then it became six. But the whole idea of one, let's make our family offerings stronger, and two, what if we keep people here for an extra meal turn? And they were doing lots of things with Johnny Rockets back then and all that stuff, and I think Cold Stone. But if we create a night parade, people won't leave at hopefully 3 or 4. They'll stay till 8 or 9 and have dinner with us. Um, and those were very successful for their time. So again, I would love to see Six Flags go in a more family direction, but there's a risk to that. Are we alienating our core customer base who are here seeking thrills? So I will be greatly fascinated to watch how it plays out. We're not working with them currently, so I get to enjoy it as a spectator for the moment.
Right.
I'm wishing them great success.
Do you think that there's still room for niche markets in terms of like smaller scale things? Because there's things like the Museum of Broadway in New
Yeah.
York City, which is an incredible experience. I've been a few times, and there are small scale indoor parks, and you see a lot more entertainment facilities like American Dream in
Yeah.
New Jersey, and um, I overseas, and in like Abu Dhabi, there's the Warner Brothers World, and
Yeah.
obviously that's much more higher budgeted, but there still can be smaller scale niche markets. Is that something that could be doable if it was, is there audiences for it? Do you think that it could be something that would be a better option for the person who may not be able to go to Disney all the time?
Well, that's such a great question, and it's more relevant now than ever before. So both domestically and globally. So domestically first, you know, I I've been watching that so carefully for decades that there was a really interesting exercise back when gosh, I guess they're now part of Six Flags. So the Cedar Fair, even before that, Paramount Parks. There was in the early 2000s, they were really going in with IP-based attractions, and they remember they had the Italian Job Coaster, and they had the Tomb Raider ride, and they were doing I'm not sure if it ever got built, the Survivor ride, and all these kind of goofy but kind of cool things. And I wondered back then, could Paramount at the time offer a product that would entice people to maybe skip the Disney vacation every so often and go there instead, especially given what it costs to travel. And that never fully became the case in the way that maybe it could have been. But now that Disney is kind of, pricing a lot of families out. I mean, gosh, when I worked at Disneyland back in the early 2000s, it was $39 to get in for the day. We went last week at $200 for the day for one ticket, which is
My
insane.
God.
So if they are becoming a premium product for, a very narrow audience, perhaps, then I'd like to think that there is more and more and more of a market opening up for other types of experiences. We've seen Meow Wolves popping up all over. We've
Yeah,
seen,
there's going to be one in New York soon.
yeah, and LA too. Um, and I'd like to think that these regional parks will be the beneficiary of this, and that they can capitalize on that. and love that, Kings Island, for example, is revitalizing the Phantoms Theater in a new way. I mean,
Hmm.
all these things, and just keep doing more of that. Look at Monster Mansion. Let's. I know it's risky, but I mean, coasters age and their shelf life. I mean, I can't believe King of Ka's gone. That they don't.
Oh God, let me tell you, the
It's crazy.
bemoaning and
It's
the
crazy.
controversy that happened. Ugh,
Of course, but
the
yeah, coasters don't age, but dark rides and family attractions are timeless if you do them right. And then really quickly to touch on that same idea from an international standpoint. Again, I mentioned everyone wants Disney and Universal, but very, 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 very few developers can afford to build that. So what makes sense are these smaller destination attractions. I mean, we opened a small park for Lotte in Busan, South. Lotte World's Korea's number one theme park. And they wanted to open a second park, but in a much, much, much smaller market than the flagship park in Seoul. So we designed a park for them that could be built for less than 200 million US dollars. And if that sounds like a lot of money, it's not. I mean, one ride at Disney now can be more than $400 million for one ride, not the land even. So to do a whole park for less than half of the cost of one ride at Disney, that is something that might make sense in a lot of markets around the world, or something like Trans Studio in Indonesia that's kind of a hybrid between a FEC, a family entertainment center, and an indoor theme park. Maybe it's not as small or as simple as a family entertainment center, but it's not as grand as a Lotte World or Ferrari World or Warner Brothers Movie World. So I'd like to think, in countries like Brazil, for example, that I think have a population of 300 to 400 million people, but maybe not a huge middle class, or India even, that there's a huge market for these more modest investments, but that can still be of a very high quality.
as we wrap this up, which by the way, thank you again for taking all this time.
By far.
Um, where would you like to see Legacy Entertainment take its future, and what are you excited for in regards to what you're able to talk about?
Yeah. It's an interesting time. Again, no one's really sure where the industry is headed. I think to end on kind of a optimistic note, it's a great time for our industry, which is true. That's not marketing hype. It really is a great moment for our industry that um, incredible things are happening all around the world. Disney, as we all know, is investing $60 billion in their parks and experiences over a decade. Universal just opened Epic Universe. They're going to open the park in Texas. So obviously Comcast is betting big on the future of our industry. Many, many people are employed, which is always exciting. There's so many things happening in the Middle East, between what's happening in Saudi Arabia, what's happening in Disney Abu Dhabi. We're super busy in Asia and elsewhere. So that's the neat thing is, I think there's a lot of challenges out there. TV's in a weird place, films are in a weird place. Broadway, is you could argue it's in a weird place just because there haven't been maybe great shows in a long time. So a lot of entertainment mediums are on a downbeat. However, our industry is, I think, in a lot of ways, the best it's ever been. So it's a great time to be part of the industry in any manner, as a designer, as an operator, as someone that works at a theme park, however you're part of it, it's a great time to be part of it. For us specifically at Legacy, cruise lines are a huge growth sector right now, which is really exciting. So just this fact blew my mind when I learned it, when we were getting into this market, that every year around the world, 250 million people go to the top theme parks that that you see in the attendance reports. Right now, around the entire world, only a little over 30 million people are going on cruises every year. And there are a lot of studies showing that cruises are a better value for your dollar than theme parks, because theme parks have just become so expensive. So now we're helping cruise lines become more competitive with theme parks. We're working with, Royal Caribbean, I think is the one that's been announced, creating their next generation of ports and attractions, which is kind of merging into what we do with theme parks. So that's super exciting. That's really cool. You touched on these kind of smaller parks. I think there's a huge, huge, huge growth area for that. And then I'm hoping that in the next couple of months, we get to announce some of the cool stuff that we're doing in Asia, in particular with Vinpearl in Vietnam. I think we're doing 5 projects for this one client right now. And one of them is, I think, probably the biggest theme park happening in the world right now, as far as I know. I mean, we're talking 6 or 7 or 8 million people a year at one park. And it has a really unique theme that hasn't been done in this way before. So I really can't wait to talk about that fully. But if I had to say anything, that's just how I'd wrap it up, is that, this is a great moment for our entire industry, and we're all lucky to be part of it.
Well, thank you so much, Taylor. This has been incredibly insightful and very in depth. I've learned a lot, and I'm really looking forward to the future of Legacy.
Oh my gosh, we just scratched the surface. We can go for several more hours. So if there's ever a sequel, let me know.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more opportunities for us to talk. And you know what? The next time there's something big on the horizon, let's let me make the formal announcement for you.
Perfect. I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again, Taylor Jeffs, and everyone at Legacy Entertainment for helping me put that interview together. If you want to see more stuff like this, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. And of course, be sure to listen to episodes of the Backstage Kingdom podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast episodes. Give them 5 stars, leave a comment. You know how to do this. And be sure to look out for more videos like this and so much more, all coming to you right here on the Backstage Kingdom. I'm Michael St. Gregory, and I'll see you real soon.